Hey everybody, Tom Sheehan of the Sheehan Group of Compass here with your, let's call it your March and April market report. You may have noticed that I didn't have a March report. That's because as we were starting to get the data to provide you with intelligent information, so much was changing and the situation was so fluid. It didn't make sense to give you a report on something that I could have changed in a day. But here we are in the first week of April, and we've got a new sense of where things stand, and I can now provide you with some information that I think is relevant and can be true, at least for the time being. So let's first talk about what was going on in January and February and what the numbers ended up telling us. Well, what happened was, and this is typical when we have a mild winter, the buyers hit the market in full force very early in the year. And since people who are looking to sell tend to not list their property until March or April, what happens is the properties that are listed in January get a ton of attention. And so what we saw happening in January and into February were an extremely seller-friendly market. We saw reasonable priced properties selling very quickly with prices well over the asking price and terms very favorable to the seller. The market was off to a red hot start, which was a bit of a departure from what we saw in 2019 when we saw some easing of the seller market conditions moving towards buyer conditions. So let's talk about the numbers of what we saw through February in 2020 when we compared it to February of 2019. Well, the median sale price over that year was up to $619,000. That was an increase of 8% year over year. New listings was up 16%. That was just an indication that the sellers started to catch wind of what was happening and more people rushed to put their home on the market sooner to take advantage of the market condition. The active listings, despite the increase in new listings, was down year over year by almost 15%. So what was out there was getting gobbled up very quickly. And the days on market was down 14%. And you might recall with condominiums, the market was much more softer last year than when compared to single families. And while that remained true in the month of February of 2020, we still saw significant price gains. The median sale price of a condo in February of 2020 when compared to February of 2019 was up to $575,000, an 8.5% increase. New listings were up 14%. So like the single family sellers, the condo sellers realized what was going on in the market and more of them decided to list sooner than later. But despite that increase in the number of new listings, the active listings went down 4%. And days on market curiously stayed flat. So as we headed into March, we were looking at a red hot spring market. It wasn't until about mid-March that we really started to see the effects of COVID-19 on the local real estate market. Even as late as the third week of March, we were seeing still high traffic at open houses and multiple offers on reasonably priced, desirable properties, selling significantly over the asking price with terms very favorable to the seller. But as we got into this last week of March and then the first week of April, we've seen a dramatic decrease in activity. In some markets, I'm seeing half as many new listings as you would have ordinarily seen in that week of the year, and buyer activity is down significantly. But really, none of this really comes as a surprise. Then it's going to be twofold. You're going to have both buyers and sellers not willing to interact with people, the type of interaction that would occur through marketing your property and visiting properties you're interested in buying. And we've seen COVID-19 have some dramatic effects on the economy, which erodes both buyers and sellers' confidence. And while the market is definitely slowed, it doesn't mean that there's absolutely no activity. The reality is some people find themselves in situations where they have to move, they have to buy, they have to sell. And frankly, it's been pretty remarkable of how the real estate market and the people in the industry have adjusted to accommodate the situation. We still have mortgage brokers, attorneys, appraisers, home inspectors adapting to this situation to help current deals go through and deals that need to happen now to continue. If you've seen my properties marketed, you know that I've always done property videos. You know that I've always done 3D Matterport tours. Now I'm doing more thorough, long view property tours to better vet potential buyers on property. We're doing virtual Zoom meetings, Google Hangout meetings to connect with people. As always, the paperwork is done through electronic signature. Money and deposits are being transacted by wire instead of in person checks. We're developing virtual brochures of our properties for people to review and see key information that they would otherwise get in a pamphlet at a showing. And for things that have to be done in person, like inspections or walkthroughs, we're doing it with strict social distancing in mind. So we'll eventually get the numbers for March, and I don't think we're going to see at all the full effect of COVID-19 in those numbers. Those numbers are really going to be reflected in April. How this all plays out, listen, anyone who tells you with any certainty is lying. It's a complete guess because this is completely uncharted territory. But the reality is, up until mid-late March, we had an extremely strong housing market. Interest rates are still very appealing in that mid 3% range, and the government seems to be taking some very significant steps to making sure economically we can hold out as long as we need to before we return to some level of normalcy. And hopefully many of those who've been laid off or furloughed can return to work and our economy can bounce back. So, bottom line is, yes, obviously the housing market has been significantly impacted by COVID-19. And yes, things are significantly slower and many people have hit the pause button. But there are those that need to act or need to move for one reason or another, and the industry is adapted to accommodate those people, including myself. So if you or anyone you know has any questions or needs any advice on how to proceed with their real estate decisions during this uncertain time, I'm here, I'm available, and I've adapted to these unprecedented times. As always, you can reach out to me however is easiest for you. You can shoot me a text message, give me a call, write me an email, comment below, whatever works best for you. I'm here for you. Thanks for watching and be safe.